These readings talk a lot about the spiritual realm. As modern Episcopalians, the idea of demons makes us uncomfortable. And the second reading is incomprehensible. These are writings from a different time and place and do not fit well into a world of science and inquiry. But I think when we completely ignore or skip over these readings, we do so at our own peril. And today's second reading speaks directly to this issue. In the ancient Roman Empire and its territories, there were small Jewish enclaves within most of the cities. In the larger communities, they had built synagogues, but in other communities, they met in their homes. And these Jewish communities were seen as strange and exotic. They did not fit in or try to assimilate in the way that most people did. Under Roman rule, Egyptians and Greeks and Persians were living in Rome, and Romans were living in Spain and even Judea. But even while each of these groups would bring some of their own customs with them, they also took part in the culture of the people they lived among. The calendars were filled with festivals, most of which were celebrated with lots of alcohol and loosening of morals. The Jewish people did not participate and would not eat or drink the wine that was dedicated to the gods whose festivals people were celebrating. They have kosher and would not eat bacon or seafood or snails. Many of their neighbors saw this as strange and suspicious, but others admired their piety and the commitment of these Jewish communities. Some would even go as far as to try to keep kosher themselves and go to synagogues to hear the rabbis preach, though becoming Jewish themselves is a step too far. In Corinth in particular, Paul found many of these people particularly receptive to his message regarding Jesus as the Messiah. Now, some in this community were more educated and sophisticated in their thinking than others. And this intellectual group said, look, if God is willing to take us as is, and we do not need to become Jewish, and we all know that the false gods are just made up anyways, why can't we eat the food dedicated to them? It's good food, and trying to find food that has not been dedicated to these idols, especially with all these festivals, is time-consuming. But there were others, both within, and at least as important, from outside the community, who saw this as assimilation into the society at large, an acceptance of the festivals and the deities that they represented. For some of these other believers and potential converts, these other deities were not deities at all, but demons. And as such, those who would eat this food were demon worshippers. And so Paul's argument is, look, I hear you. I agree with you. It is not a sin to eat food that was made by humans for human consumption, that was dedicated to made-up gods. But to others, it looks like you are engaging in demon worship. And because of that, some people are being scandalized and others are engaging in worship of these false gods. So there is sin here, not because you are eating food, but because of the impact that has on others. Now, this brings us to the gospel. Throughout the gospel, we have stories of demons being driven out. In today's world, we're not sure what to do with this. Maybe Jesus' presence in the world has meant there are just not so many demons to fight, but most symptoms of demon possession seem to be issues of mental illness or mental degradation due to disease. And so, like with those more intellectual folks of Corinth, educated people today have a tendency to dismiss demons in their entirety to superstition. But most Christian churches, including both Catholic and mainline Protestant churches, do still declare demonic possession to be real and have rituals for expelling demons. But they are rarely practiced and only done when more rational explanations have been rolled out. So yes, the notion of demonic possession makes us uncomfortable and feels silly to even be discussing. And it does seem strange that Jesus encountered so many people possessed by demons when the phenomenon is so incredibly rare today. So I do not know what to do with this passage. I do think that it is a fallacy to dismiss the reality as it was understood by the people of the time. I think that evil is a real presence and temptation in this world that endangers all of us, and that it manifests itself in greed and focus on self above others and on the present over the future. Whether demons or human self-interest and self-entitlement or some combination of both are behind it, I do not know. But that evil, when confronted by the purity of Jesus, would recognize that goodness and be threatened by it does make sense. And when my mother and grandparents were dying, and when I have encountered others who are nearing death or suffering from dementia, most of the time, even when they were awake, they were not present. Their minds were somewhere else or sometime else. But then there would be these sparks, these moments when suddenly they knew who they were, where they were, when they were, and who I was. And I think Jesus was able to bring people to these moments, and in some cases lead them back into being, to heal their physical illnesses and cause them to behave rationally. And I think ultimately, what we can take from today's reading is love. Love for those who are suffering, and love for those whose beliefs we might find backwards and simplistic, even if you understand an issue of spirituality differently. They are not causing you or others harm. Arguing with people about their beliefs just drives people away. And if their beliefs are causing harm, attacking them head on won't lead them to change. It will just drive them away. Amen.